Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Launch Notes podcast. I'm Blake from Launch Notes. Really thrilled to be joined today by Meghan Keaney Anderson. Meghan recently joined the exciting company Jasper as their first head of marketing. She was also CMO at the Wanderlust Group and a VP at Hubspot. There's a ton of great stuff to dive into here. Really excited for this one. Meghan, welcome to the Launch Notes podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
I'm so psyched to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to get into, AI and Jasper and all the stuff happening in that space. But maybe before we get into that, maybe we could talk a little bit about your path into marketing and product marketing. I know you were, I think, one of the early product marketers at HubSpot, which sounds like a super exciting experience. And yeah, maybe just give us a little color on how you got in this world in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go all the way back to when I was in college, and I won't tell you when, but I was a creative writing major. I really wanted to have a career that was sort of steeped in storytelling and writing. And so when I graduated, that path wasn't exactly clear. Like there was writing everywhere, but I didn't know exactly how to use that skill. So I started as a copywriter for a nonprofit in Boston called the United Way. And as nonprofits are, you take on one role and then you kind of like expand to wear multiple hats because needs evolve and their budgets aren't the best. And so I ended up running kind of the website and all of the digital strategy for United Way. And that was where I got really excited about technology and its capacity to galvanize action. Right? Online donations were first starting to come in. Social media was starting to take off at that time. And so I decided that I wanted to pivot for a little bit at least and get into the tech space. So I went to go work for a tech startup. Great opportunity that I got by Dave Cancel, who's another career startup founder. And then HubSpot bought that startup. When I arrived at HubSpot, they weren't exactly expecting me. So the CMO at the time, Mike Volpe, was like, well, I don't have a role, but one thing that we do know is that after this acquisition, we're going to be rebuilding the software from the ground up. And we're going to need somebody to communicate all those changes to customers. And that's actually where HubSpot's product marketing org started, was just in a desire to communicate out product changes. And then over time, of course, that became, well, let's not just communicate changes that have already happened. Let's get proactive and do product launches. And then that evolved into positioning and full go-to-market strategy and so forth. So I spent about 10 years at HubSpot, got to build out an amazing product marketing team there, and expanded to also lead the content team and brand and the creative strategy team. And then left that after, again, almost a decade to get back into a smaller company again. And that's sort of how I found my way back into Wanderlust. And then Jasper came around and frankly, I was just really excited about that space of generative AI as somebody who was a lifelong writer, who cares deeply about writing, to see a platform that helps you write, faster. I got intrigued by, and so that's how I ended up here.
No, that's certainly a really exciting background. Sounds like you learned a ton along the way and got to interact with a lot of great folks along the way. Gosh, I'm just chomping at the bit to dive into the AI stuff, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about kind of early days product marketing at HubSpot, because I think it's such an iconic company in terms of like storytelling and positioning. Obviously, like building the product and platform and all the exciting stuff that happened there, but then the whole inbound movement and narrative and everything you guys did around that. It's still like my go-to example when I'm having kind of positioning and messaging conversations with founders and teammates. Just the way you all had that story so crisp and were so present in evangelizing it, and the way it tied into the product so well. Just kind of a masterclass at positioning and category creation. What were those early days of standing up product marketing like? What were the couple things that sort of like snapped stuff into place for you all then?
Yeah, well, there were a couple things that helped. To begin with, HubSpot always had a really clear kind of brand vision for the company. They had noticed this shift where people were starting to filter out advertising and take more control over the way that they consume content online. And, the idea of inbound was really born out of not out of a marketing room, but out of a greater shift that was happening in the space. And so HubSpot became about how do you attract people instead of pushing messages out to them. And that was their brand, to create a better kind of marketing, a better kind of customer experience. And so we got to build the product positioning on a really sharp point of view at a brand level, which I thought was really helpful, because then the enemy becomes clear at every single product you launch. The problem you're trying to solve is always, disruptive marketing. It's always cold calls and harassing sales experiences. It's, always tied to that initial inbound feeling. And so we built the architecture for the product off of that. And we made sure that it rhymed across all of our product lines. And oftentimes we would create a product and it wouldn't quite fit with the narrative. And we'd have to ask ourselves the question, like, what is our point of view on this product? Why does this fit with, the rest of these brands that we've built? So that was sort of on the messaging side. I think the other thing on the, just a straight orchestration side that we did early was we set up a communication system for how to handle, product roadmaps and product changes as they rolled out. I was just joking with some of my former teammates about this. Like we internally called it the product notification system. But now that's become like lexicon in my head, where I'm just like, oh, we just need to send a prod notify to everybody. Yeah. But we had this developed a really rigid discipline around preparing for a product to go to market and what needs to happen at beta and at open beta and, ahead of the launch to prime customers in the market for that change.
Yeah. That's great to hear. And I think a lot of teams mess that up because they think like getting some sort of like formal or rigid process around how you do that is going to sort of zap their creativity. And, marketers like to be creative and feel like every launch is like a new invented thing, but it ends up, in my experience, it ends up being the opposite. Like you get some of that structure and planning in place and that repeatable process in place. It frees up, it gives you space and, time to actually do like what you want to do, which is some of the creative stuff and peppering in the unique parts of that launch, because like, all right, we're going to do an email campaign and that needs to kick off by X day. And we're going to have a landing page and these people need to get notified by a certain time or whatever. Right. I
think that's exactly right, Blake. And I think it's an underappreciated part of this. What I like about product marketing is that it's at the exact intersection of really creative storytelling work and really organized assembly building around getting a product out, because it's the team and the role that brings sales and customer success and partners and your product organization together. And if you don't have a skeleton and a framework for which to do that, it's going to be like herding cats.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and it's a great role to be if you sort of like and enjoy that, that sort of left brain, right brain duality, and you're, I think I'm oriented that way where, I don't want to just kind of live in like the squishy creative or the hyper structured. Like you want to kind of be able to play in both sides, and it's a great role if you want to do that. And some of the best product marketers kind of live in both those camps, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's jump into Jasper a little bit. Maybe before we go too far, give us an overview of, what the company is, what you all have done so far. I know you joined recently, so maybe a little bit about, what you're kind of standing up on the marketing side and what you're looking forward to there.
Yeah, so Jasper is an AI content platform. And what that means is it's in the generative AI space. So if you are a writer and you are stuck in a blog post, you're either staring at that blinking cursor, or maybe you've written the whole thing and you cannot for the life of you figure out how to close it. You can call up Jasper with a single keystroke and it will suggest the next line, the next paragraph for you in a way that is like context rich, that is informed by what you've written and by what all it's learned across the web about natural language. And so it really helps writers and content creators kind of break through writer's block And then they can also take content and repackage it into different formats, different tones, different languages even. And so it really is meant to be this incredible assistant to content creators to help them move faster through the stuff that takes time so that they can focus on the incredible ideas and the original research and the unique angles that they want to bring to it. So it's comprised of a writing assistant and then also Jasper Art, which allows you to just describe what image you want, and Jasper will create options for that image. Real-time saver when it comes to stock image, not hunting through stock image sites and things like that for your content. So it's been around for about, I've been saying 18 months, but we're creeping up on 2 years now. It's launched in January, I know, of 2021. And it's had like a tremendous early run. I mean, the product market fit was almost instantaneous. And that's because that pain point of not being able to convey your own ideas or not being able to convey them quickly enough to meet all the content demands that are rising every day, that pain point is visceral, and everybody has that, right? We've all had that panic of staring at blank page. And so the product market fit was there almost instantly. In the first almost 2 years, we've grown to about 80,000 paying customers, and we are really, starting to see it make a meaningful difference in the way that people work. I joined in September, so I've been here just about 2 months. And I got to sort of experience that myself, see us go through our first Series A announcement. It's been really fun. We definitely feel like this is a moment. We happen to hit on what I think is a major technological shift in its earliest days. And so it's just felt kind of awe-inspiring to be part of it.
Yeah. No, great summary. And it is an extremely exciting time to be in with what's happening in AI right now. Clearly we're at the beginning days of what's obviously going to be a very large and important, revolutionary wave that's going to touch a lot of things. And, writing is likely just one slice of it, and creative work is one slice of it. But yeah, it's a really cool time, and it's a really cool product. I was telling you before the recording here, I've had a chance to check it out, play with it quite a bit. And, I've been writing professionally in one way or another since 2006. So, I've done a lot of different types of writing, and, it's a craft that's near and dear to me, but I think it's going to be a really exciting tool. I think there's a lot of writers for good reason are sort of, hesitant around it right now. And there will always be some of that, but,
so here's how I think about that as a writer myself. I think about the parallel of digital photography, right?
Yeah.
So for, eras, photographers out there was, people who were really exceptional photography. They were developing their own film. They were figuring out the right aperture themselves. And then digital photography came along. And what it did was not make them irrelevant or make them less talented. What it did was it widely opened the field for a whole new array of emerging photographers to learn the craft, right? And as a result, we have exceptional digital photography today. We still have exceptional photography that is done by hand, and the whole field is richer. And I think throughout history, there have been a handful of these technological shifts or advancements that are always really scary at first because you think it's a replacement. And what it really does is it is an accelerator, right? It widens the field for new creative types and new creative thoughts to come out. And that's our hope here, right?
100%.
So, and there's certainly ways this goes wrong. There's certainly, implications of all new technology. And I think we're trying to do this responsibly as well and be, try to steer away from that. But that's kind of how I see it. Yeah. Though I understand the fear.
Yeah, no, it's a great way of looking at it. And especially with the idea of opening, really similar to digital photography, where there's more pictures being created, more images being taken on a net basis now than at any point in history by like orders of magnitude. And the sort of widening of the, no pun intended, the sort of widening of the aperture and playing field for, you know, especially like non-photographers, or in this case, non-writers, and the playing with, you know, Jasper and some of these other tools that I've done so far. Like, it's very clear to me, as someone who's gotten asked for writing advice for many years, like how impactful of tooling this is going to be, especially for non-writers, because most writing, again, happens by not professional writers. It's someone in their job. It's someone who's, you know, got an email to send or a headline to write, but they've got another job, or it's a product manager with a, you know, feature description to write out, or, you know, you name it. Like most of the, you know, most of that writing is happening by people who don't necessarily have the craft to do it. And getting over the kind of, I think you referenced the blank page problem. That's what I think is really interesting about this, and the way you can spin up a first draft of something. Yeah. And it might be nowhere close to what you end with, but writers know that's how writing goes anyway, right? Yeah. That's always my go-to writing advice when people ask me for writing advice, is like, get something on the page. Like, get over the, you know, you have no kind of clay on the wheel, like get something there.
That's exactly right.
You can start to play with and move around and shape, and, you know, that's what will lead to, but kind of getting to there is where most people struggle. And it's really interesting to see tooling like this come up that can kind of snap that first draft into place and get you over that hurdle.
Yeah. And also, like, I can't tell you, I'm like looking over my bookcase right now. I can't tell you the number of unfinished pieces that I have in like journals and you know, collections, because I hit a wall. Right. And, you know, if I could have gotten a nudge to get that next line down, you know, where could that piece have gone? So I think from people who are non-native English speakers or non-native speakers permanently to really exceptional writers who still need a little creative space and a little bit of a partner, I think there's applicability here.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's really exciting to see it take off. I had, you know, I've often sort of had this, because I did journalism and newspaper writing for a lot of years. And I often kind of have had this mantra of like, the writing, the typing is often the least important part of writing. Like, this obviously depends on the kind of writing you're doing, but I'm a firm believer in like, the important part is like, you know, in my newspaper days, it was doing the reporting. It might be doing the research. Yeah. If you're writing a memoir, like the important part is like living a life worth writing about, or like doing the things, or collecting the data, or gathering the research. And a lot of times putting the writing part together, that's almost like, you know, a plumber connecting the pipes. Like you have to do it, but the real art is finding the information, like getting the insights or experiences or data or whatever that you're going to write about. And I think there's going to be some interesting stuff with, you know, with Jasper and this technology, in terms of, you know, we could have this conversation right now, and I could, you know, I envision a day, if I can't do it already, maybe I can upload the transcript, push a button, and get a nice summary of what we talked about.
Yeah, Jasper could do that for you today.
Yeah.
We should do this after.
Yeah,
but
we will.
I love that point, Blake, because like that's exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, that's important, because that perspective, that lived experience, that original research, that is what AI cannot do. And that is why AI needs humans, right? So there's always this debate between like, is a robot going to take my job? Is it me? Is it better than me? It's not about better. It's not about this versus that, because if you just left Jasper or any AI up to its own devices, it would string a bunch of words together, but it wouldn't necessarily be good. Yeah. Because to your point, what makes content good is point of view, perspective, human lived experience. And it's the partnership of those two things that is where I want this all to head.
Yeah. So I could go down like a writer's nerd rabbit hole with this all day. I'm trying to remember our audience here is product teams, product managers, product marketers. Obviously for content creators, and I've done product marketing, and now I'm back in more of a kind of content focused role, but I'm especially interested for product marketers. How do you see a tool like this or technology like this being useful for them? And especially like, what are some, if I'm a product marketer out there, like what are some tactical things I could do now if I'm seen AI and I'm like, okay, this is obviously huge. I've been playing with it. I've been making cool things on Dolly. I want to use this in my job. Like, what can I actually do to bring this into my role?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I think product marketers are first and foremost storytellers themselves, even if they don't have the bachelor's in creative writing that I do. But so what I would say is like, oftentimes you're building up positioning for a piece before you ever get to messaging and writing. And you could use a tool like this to, you're debating between two positioning statements or 2 points of architecture for positioning. And you can start to see how that positioning would manifest in a blog post, in social media content, in email sequences very, very quickly to be able to say, oh, does that translate well? Right. So imagine I come with most positioning for product marketing is like, who are we serving? What's the problem? How do we solve it? Why are we different in the way that we solve it? And what's the call to action? Basically, you take those 5 points and you can very quickly build out an entire collection of content based on those 5 points. And then you can decide, oh, I want to swap out the differentiation for something else and then see it again. So that's how I would use it as a product marketer, is to try to very quickly spin up different manifestations of different positioning. And then also to help me just jumpstart all of my content for launches. Yeah. You have a tremendous amount of content to create for a given product launch. You've got the launch blog post, you've got the email sequences, and they're all kind of the same. They're all working off the same source document. So again, like I would pull it in. You have a lot to do in a very short period of time as a product marketer. Sometimes you get like 3 weeks to launch a product. This summer we launched Jasper Art in 1 week. And so the ability to, to do a lot more in what is always a time crunch, and so that you could clear your head and think about the rest of the launch strategy is a good use.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you are creating, like, whenever there's a big launch or a big campaign as a product marketer, it's like, all right, we've got this sort of long form kind of thought leadership piece, and we need email copy, and we need ad copy, and we need landing page copy. And it's all, you're right, it's all derived from your kind of core messaging document or your sort of core message house around that. But it's like, I need the 30-word version. I need the 4-paragraph version. I need the this and that. And I can see this. And that can be done in
under 5 minutes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, I'm curious how you've played with this and implemented this. I've only scratched the surface of it, but the little bit I've seen, I think there's a lot of potential in it, which is, back out from the actual creating of content into the kind of brainstorming and creativity side. I've seen some really cool things where it's like, hey, here's a summary of this email. Give me 20 headline examples. Yeah. Or give me, 5 wild ideas based on this objective or something like that. And some of it's out there. Some of it's, irrelevant. Some of it's,
needs human judgment
pieces or whatever, but there can be little nuggets in there. And, as a kind of creative writing background person, like, there's intentional exercises around, like, make a list of absurd things and we'll find some weird thing to pull on, right? Yeah. And that'll turn into something, and we'll use our human creativity to augment it, and that'll take us on a path. And it's sort of like the first signpost pointing you down that road. I think there's a lot. That's like an underdeveloped point with this whole, technology wave, I think, especially for writers and creative folks and marketers. Have you been able to play with that some, or any practical ways you guys are using that there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so there's templates and stuff within Jasper that allow you to do just that, of like, hey, can you generate 10 headlines or subject lines or ad copy, give me a bunch of different variants. And it definitely helps, in exactly as you said, to have this raw material to be like, none of this, but that kernel in there. Yes. Exactly. So I think it's great from one of the best use cases I've heard, or my favorites. We have a Jasper Nation community. It's like 70,000 people in a Facebook group.
Wow.
I'm telling you, we're getting started. Like
Yeah. Wow.
we're starting at Facebook, but we gotta expand. But
Yeah.
that Facebook community is amazing. It's active and it's full of people like sharing what they call recipes, just their ideas for how to use Jasper differently. One of the recipes that a user shared was he had this huge collection of research, customer research, right? He had done all these interviews, he had survey responses, and he needed a way to synthesize it. So he dumped it all into Jasper and asked Jasper to summarize the key points. And he was able to find themes within all that research that helped him figure out what was most important out of what people were saying, right? And that was an atypical use of Jasper, nothing that we would had ever proposed people to do, but is a use case that I think makes a lot of sense in the idea of how do you take just a mass amount of information and streamline it down and then use that to then brainstorm new ideas.
That's really cool. I have to share this anecdote because it's really cool when you see it. It does feel like magic when you see some of this technology, like some of the stuff like that shows up in unexpected ways. Little kind of anecdote on that. I was talking with our product manager here at Launch Notes, and not to turn this into a Launch Notes sales pitch.
No, it's awesome.
We recently implemented the beginnings of some AI functionality into our platform. We've got big ambitions to do more with it and kind of augment the product management toolkit with AI technology. So we're super ambitious with that, and we just got that launched super recently here. But one example that we were talking about that we saw in our own product doing this was we put in, so we have a component where you can use AI to help create a launch announcement. So I think you called it prod notify or something or whatever it is in terms of like, hey, like I've got to get this announcement out there. We've got some bug fixes we need to summarize, and you can put that on your Launch Notes page, instantly using AI. And he had actually had a SQL query from the engineering team that like did some updates and stuff to the database. Like this specific query like would update the database, update some tables in the database, which then like kind of changed, some of the data available for customers. He actually put the SQL query like in its raw format into there, and the AI essentially untangled what was happening inside that query, the changes it was making, like basically read the SQL and summarized in human language, like, oh, we've created a new table which allows customers to
That's really cool. Yeah.
To add X to their profile. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's insane.
That's amazing. Because you think about all of the frequency with which some of these companies, probably your customers, are releasing new features and everybody thinks with product marketing is about the big launch that you do, once or twice a year, but there's probably like hundreds and hundreds of micro changes that happen in the product in a daily basis. And so the volume of updates that you need to do to communicate out to your customers is immense. So that
it really
immediately
is. Yeah.
Like the value of that's really clear.
Yeah. And that's really like candidly, like that's how our product and platform came to be, was the sort of realization of the sort of exactly what you just lined up there, where it's like, hey, the modern way that these tools are being updated, it's like you don't have the one or two big changes every year. You have developers and product teams shipping changes on a weekly, if not daily basis. As a product manager, that's very hard to keep up with. So sort of Launch Notes V1 was just a platform to allow product marketers to share those updates more frequently. But now with AI, it's just like such an obvious layer and use case for that, where it's like, oh, cool. Like now we'll actually let you draft the announcement quicker.
Yeah. It's a good extension of it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 70,000 people in a Facebook group. How's that happen?
I think it speaks to product market fit. We're not, let me give you something more useful than that. Yeah. So within Jasper, when you sign up on the dashboard, there's a featured spot to join our community, right? And that's intentional because we think community is not only going to be what becomes a moat for Jasper, but it's also going to help make sure that people are using this well and getting value out of it. The number itself is actually not what's impressive about the community. What's impressive about the community is that people will ask a question and a dozen Jasper users will jump to answer it.
That's
Without
amazing.
us needing to do that. And their answers are great. And they're usually better than ours because they come with lived experience, right? So, one of the things that we try to caution users against it is like, listen, you do not want Jasper to just write your whole thing. If you're writing a blog post, like, you don't want to use Jasper as like a set it and forget it, churn out a bunch of junk content for the sake of volume. So I remember in the group, somebody had asked a question like, hey, Jasper wrote a blog post, but the facts were inaccurate. And one of the other users said, well, that's because Jasper is actually not meant to be a researcher or like a fact checker. It's just AI for writing. So you need to go in, you need to do original research, you need to correct your facts, right? And that kind of interplay saved us from having to be like, that's user error, saved us from having to be the bad guy. So I think the growth happened, in parallel with the growth of the company and usage. I think that what has made that community special, though, is that the engagement has been really high.
Yeah, no, and it definitely speaks to the stickiness of the product and the technology and the pride users feel once they develop some fluency in this product, right?
Yeah.
It's probably not unlike, people who get, super deep into Excel or Salesforce or something like they want to share what they found out and learned. And that's a testament to like a product experience that has a lot of like depth and discovery to it as well.
And again, it's such an emerging technology and space that they really are pioneering the space with us. So they're figuring out new use cases and new pitfalls. So community is hugely important to how we operate.
And I just have to call out your mention of there's a community spotlight in the dashboard. That's one of that's like, to me, that's like, tell me you have founders with a marketing background without telling me you have founders with a marketing background.
We do have founders with a marketing background.
Exactly. Like, that's great. Like there's a lot of marketing teams would have to fight tooth and nail to get that in there. So that's cool to see that's been part of the experience since day one.
And we promote it as part of all the onboarding flows. And we offer paying customers like a 15-minute boot camp, like a one-on-one coaching.
Oh, cool.
And as part of that, we'll also point them to the community for further support. So it's embedded in everything that we get out there for onboarding customers.
Gosh, I'm just thinking this could be a whole separate conversation, so we don't have to go down this, but I'm imagining how you do like demos and demo content with, I hate to say the technology is unpredictable, but like it's not like a vanilla Salesforce integration with some other SaaS app where it's like, I'm going to push this button and know exactly what's going to happen. Like you're kind of dealing with the ephemeral in a little bit. Like I'm just picturing being a PMM for Jasper.
I know.
Videos and doing live demos and the kind of funny unpredictability that arises with that. Yeah.
You know what I really want to do though, Blake? Like I want to highlight the the gaffes. And show those off as much as we show off the good stuff, because I think like it's important that people see the strings and they know that like, I do still have a role here. I think that, so I kind of want to make a Tumblr that's just like Jasper.
That's funny.
Jasper mistakes.
Yeah. Jasper after dark, Jasper on Earth.
Exactly. Because he does say some crazy things.
Yeah. I don't know if you're doing like Gong or something for sales or call recordings, but I bet you could build an end of year, just like highlight reel of bloopers.
Yeah, we have that
from that. Yeah. That's great.
The other thing that's cool, I'll say real quick, is like, this is the first time I've worked at a company where the moment of value is immediate. So when we get on a demo with people, they lose their ever-loving minds, because it's the first time. It's not like, here's a box and you've got to like to put some work in, and after a few months you're going to see some value. Our demo literally goes, what would you like Jasper to write about? We write 3 words, we hit generate, and it's a full blog post. It may not be perfect, but it's close enough that people are really surprised and wowed. And so that's also like, a lot of our growth, I think, has come from that immediacy of benefit. I can walk up, I can like hold open a laptop at an event, walk around and show people, like the demo can be 3 seconds long.
That's great. Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's, I have a whole separate bag of emotional baggage around demos and wow moments and demo length that we don't need to dive into, but that's really, that's really cool to hear. Yeah. Well, I could talk about this stuff all day. I'm sure you could too. Unfortunately, I think we both have, we probably both have things to get back to. So we'll wrap up with a couple quick fun ones here that I like to ask everyone. What's some conventional wisdom about, the role that you're in, the work you're doing, maybe kind of status quo thinking that you would question or push back on?
I think that, I might get in trouble for this one, but I very much believe in customer research. I want to be really, really clear about that. But sometimes you have to put something out there without a ton of customer research and just see it live and see how customers react after the fact. And so I think that sometimes you do have to go with original positioning is really what I'm talking about. You have to go on like gut and your sense of the space and your understanding of the problem you're trying to solve and take a leap. Because if you can't afford to do, months of research on that.
Yeah, there are a lot of, business stakeholders, but then, marketing leaders too, who are scared to death to change a homepage headline or something like that. And
I think you got to make the change and learn along the way and make sure that you're not make sure you have things like community to keep you honest. Right. So when you make mistakes, you are told about it, but I just have a bent towards action on some of these things. And I think people elongate that phase too much.
No, great point. And if there's conviction, likely that's backed by something. People find this need to map every change to some standalone research effort or some standalone customer research project or something. But it's also, if you've been doing the work and the team's been talking to customers and you're sharing internally and you're, you've talked to customers before and you got feedback and you've got insights and it's
just go.
You've been organically doing the research for years. It's just
conviction is a really good word there.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got the conviction for some reason. Go ahead and dive into it. All right. Last one, just for fun. We talked plenty about Jasper and AI today, but what's a product that you're excited about trying out? This could be on the work side or, kind of just for fun, personal life stuff.
Yeah. So I'm it's not a new product, but I'm falling back in love with Canva, sort of rediscovered Canva again after a while. And I have a personal account. I use it for everything. It's the same phenomenon at play. It's allowing me to do quality work faster. Yeah. So I'm kind of obsessed with them. I am excited by there's a bunch of companies that I'm starting to really admire. I like the marketing that Superside does in the design space. I think that we were just talking the other day, earlier today, about how we really admire ClickUp's social media strategy is really cool right now.
Oh, cool.
So those are less products and more just companies I'm paying attention to. I'll leave you with those for now. And now Launch Notes. I got to check out Launch Notes. You
got to check out Launch Notes. Have a look. We'll give you as long or short of a demo as you want. And it'll be super fun. But Canva's insane. Canva's such a cool product. I just have to say. Yeah. My wife was a small business owner, had a retail business. It was her and a business partner doing everything from marketing to accounting to inventory and everything. It's a lot of people in tech in Silicon Valley, I was always sort of preaching about you don't realize how big of a deal this is for people who don't have design departments and design budget and stuff like that. Canva is massive for a reason.
Completely.
Appreciate all the insights, all the opinions, all the great conversation. Thanks so much for being here. If folks want to get in touch, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you could just email Meghan at Jasper AI. Just throw the email out there. Please do not spam me. I am not buying software right now.
Yep.
But yeah, if you want to say hey, you can do that. And then I'm on Twitter at Meg Keaney, Megh, and then Keaney, and I hang out there. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll find those links, drop them in the show notes. Otherwise, thanks so much, Meghan. Super fun today. Thanks for being here.
These were such great questions, Blake. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Take care.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.